really out of nowhere, this Viognier from Virginia just blew everyone's socks off, and they're like, wow, this is something to take notice of.
So welcome to Virginia Wine TV and our new Winemaker series. What we're planning on doing is travel to the different wineries throughout the states and meeting briefly with the winemakers or proprietors and just seeing what's going on at the winery. And so our first stop is at Horton Vineyards, and there's a number of reasons why we selected Horton first. Predominantly because they are responsible for most of the diverse grape varieties that are planted now in Virginia. And with me is Mike Heny, who is the winemaker here. So Mike, just explain a little bit about the philosophy of introducing all these new grapes.
Sure. So Dennis Horton got started in Virginia in 1989. We first started planting his vines. And when Dennis was entering the scene, it was kind of a transition period. People had planted a number of hybrids in the 70s. Our close neighbors at Barbersville in 76 was the first kind of major and committed investment in vinifera. But at that point, the vinifera grapes were pretty limited. There was some Cabernet Sauvignon, some Merlot, Riesling, and Chardonnay. And I'd say at best, some of the wines were good, but more often they were mediocre, if not bad. And so what Dennis wanted to do was to try some other grapes, because those grapes that were planted less of a looking at what grows well in our particular climate in Virginia, and more of what Americans were drinking, which would mean the grapes that do well in California. Mm-hmm. So in a very bold move, Dennis planted 55 acres of grapes that had not been planted at all or been planted very rarely in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And those included Norton, Cabernet Franc, Vidal Blanc as a hybrid, and then a number of Rhone varietals such as Marsanne, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and most famously Viognier.
Yeah, and that's actually the first time I heard about the term Rhone Ranger was when it referred to Dennis being the East Coast Rhone Ranger, because he was really one of the first to plant those on the East Coast.
Absolutely, yes.
And then you were telling me earlier that Horton here was the very first to bottle a varietal Cabernet Franc.
Right, so we bottled the first varietal Cabernet Franc in 1991.
Yeah, so and obviously everyone knows that's a large, very popular grape variety here in Virginia. But we're here today actually to talk about Viognier. And the state of Virginia, through the Virginia Wine Board, has invested a lot of marketing into promoting Viognier as a signature grape. And Horton has been obviously growing this for quite a while. And in fact, if I get my prop out here, in the Paul Lukasz's book, The Great Wines of America, Horton is one of 3 non-West Coast wineries to be included in this. And he defines a great wine as one that's consistently for 10 years, the winery has produced great wine of a specific varietal wine. Horton was included for their Viognier, which is, obviously it shows that this can be grown in Virginia and it can be made into a very good wine. So tell us specifically a little bit about your Viognier.
Sure. So the Horton made their first Viognier in 1991. And then 1993 just had the stars really lined up in that there was a fantastic vintage in Virginia and just this tremendously ripe fruit. And there was great interest in Rhone varietals and especially the Viognier in the wine world. So really out of nowhere, this Viognier from Virginia just blew everyone's socks off, and they're like, wow, this is something to take notice of. So that put I think certainly Virginia Viognier on the national map for the first time, and Virginia Viognier, and we've continued since then with the Viognier, and our style is marked by ripe fruit that's handled gently, and we ferment it in a Burgundian manner, meaning we ferment it in mostly neutral French oak barrels.
Mm-hmm. So what about the Virginia climate that makes Viognier suitable?
Right, sure. So what makes it suitable is we have enough heat to ripen it so that we can get those wonderful exotic Viognier flavors, but it's not overly hot as it is in many of the areas in California where it's planted, so that the grape shows more of its sort of flabby, overripe style. So we just get this great balance and delicacy in our Viogniers that's found a few other places in the world.
Yeah, so how does it handle the humidity? Because obviously summertime in Virginia gets quite humid.
Sure. So absolutely, humidity is our big challenge in Virginia. Some of the diseases that can come from that. Viognier does well in the humidity in that it's got a very thick skin that is resistant to a lot of the rot pressure that some other grapes might see in Virginia.
Gotcha. So any other difficulties in growing the grape?
Well, not really. In our experience, we typically get a nice yield out of it. There have been some growers that have had some problems with getting an economically viable yield, but fortunately that hasn't been our challenge here.
And so what you've done this year for the first time is actually you bottled a sparkling Viognier.
Right. And actually the sparkling Viognier started off as an experiment in 1998 where we had this kind of very warm, ripe summer, and the grapes were ripening along nicely, but we also had what we felt was too large of a crop to properly ripen the grapes for a Viognier. So what we did is we early harvested a portion of the fruit about a month in advance of our regular Viognier, and made a sparkling wine out of it. See what it did, and it turned out beautifully.
And so this will be an annual occurrence now to have
Yeah, it's kind of been a standard product, and it works out well in that we're able to make a better Viognier, and as a side project we make this fascinating sparkling Viognier.
Nice. Well, we think you're doing a great job here, and actually we weren't smart enough, or I wasn't smart enough yet, to open a bottle so we can taste and show it, but we'll go upstairs. But we'll do a cheers here.
Cheers.
And so until next time, thank you.